So let me tell you a story. It's about how a simple joke about a kid's cartoon completely spiraled out of control and turned into an absolute nightmare. We're talking about a full-blown firestorm of harassment, violent threats, and some serious creator burnout, all because of one satirical video. Today, we're diving into what happens when a fandom's passion turns to poison.
And just to give you a sense of how dark this really got, take a look at this quote from the creator at the heart of it all, Snipe Snap. I mean, the stuff he was dealing with was so extreme, so unbelievably personal, that it made him question the very content he was creating and, the community he was creating it for.
Look, this was not just a handful of angry comments. No, this was a full-on, coordinated campaign. We're talking gruesome fan art, explicit death threats, and then these completely baseless accusations of doxing, which, if you don't know, is when someone maliciously leaks your private info online for the whole world to see. Just awful stuff.
So you have to ask yourself, how on earth does making fun of a cartoon for toddlers escalate into this level of pure hatred? To figure that out, we've got to go back to the very beginning.
All right, so let's take a look at the actual spark that lit this whole powder keg, the video itself.
For months, everything was fine. Snipe Snap had been making his Battle of the Bratz series with no real problems. But then, in March 2025, he drops a video about a character called Ladybird Lou. And that one video changed everything. It just unleashed this wave of fury that he absolutely did not see coming.
Okay, so it's super important to get the context here. This video was not some kind of personal attack. It was satire. It was part of this whole series where he'd poke fun at fictional characters. The whole point was always to be funny, never ever to be cruel.
And this is where you see this huge disconnect. On one side, you have the creator, whose whole intent was just satirical commentary. But on the other side, the fandom saw it as bullying real, sensitive kids, and they used that feeling to justify these horrific attacks. That huge gap right there between intent and reaction, that's exactly where this kind of online toxicity starts to fester.
So now let's actually dissect that rage. I mean, to really get what was driving all of this, we have to look at the words people were actually typing out.
Let's just start with this comment. It's not just the threat itself that's so disturbing. It's the gleeful ha 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 at the end. Can you believe that? There's a genuine sense of joy in the idea of committing violence over a cartoon. It's truly chilling.
And the personal attacks just got more and more intense. This user calls the creator a disgrace to society, an abomination. The level of pure hatred here is just so completely out of proportion for the crime of, what, making fun of a fictional ladybug?
And right here is where things get truly delusional. The same user starts blaming Snipe Snap personally for the show not getting a second season, which by the way has zero basis in reality. That warped sense of entitlement, that feeling of you are personally stopping me from getting what I want, is what they use to justify threatening to make people extinct. It's just wild.
So what drives this kind of behavior? Well, psychologically, a lot of it boils down to something called a parasocial relationship. Basically, it's when a fan develops this really strong, one-sided emotional connection to a character. Any criticism of that character then feels like a direct personal attack on them, which can trigger these wildly aggressive, protective responses.
But here's the thing. This story is actually bigger than just one creator and one fandom. Snipe Snap's experience was really a symptom of a much wider problem. This toxicity had basically become a contagion, and it was leading to creator burnout all over the place. Another creator in the same space, the cartoon movement, really puts his finger on a core issue here. He realized a lot of his viewers didn't see him as a person. Nope, they saw him as a content machine, just there to fulfill an endless list of their demands. And VP Awesome echoes that exact same feeling. He felt like his audience didn't care one bit about his well-being or his creative process. They were just there to consume, constantly demanding the next video in the series. I mean, can you imagine? That is an incredibly dehumanizing experience.
And this brings us right back to Snipe Snap. That feeling of being used, of pouring all your creative energy into making stuff for an audience that offers zero empathy in return, that's exactly what pushed him to the edge. It made him wonder if any of it was worth the massive toll it was taking on his mental health.
And look, this all has tangible consequences. You can actually see it in the numbers. View counts for these types of videos started dropping right across the board. The constant toxicity and repetition weren't just burning out the creators, it turns out they were driving away the audience too.
So what happens when that pressure just becomes too much to bear? Well, in our final section, we're going to look at the incredibly tough decisions that creators are forced to make and the ultimate verdict on the Battle of the Bratz series.
For creators who get caught in this kind of toxic cycle, there's often only one way out. It starts with just admitting, hey, I'm burned out. Then comes the incredibly hard decision to actually step away and protect your own well-being. And that's a big if you do come back, it has to be on your own terms, not just to feed a machine that's hurting.
And that is exactly what SnipeSnap did. The relentless, crushing negativity forced him to put his most popular series on an indefinite pause. You could say the creative well had run dry, basically poisoned by the very community it was built to entertain.
This quote from VP Awesome just perfectly captures the fundamental problem, doesn't it? He saw a fellow creator opening up about her burnout, only to watch the comments immediately fill up with people demanding more videos. As he says, that's not being a fan, that's just exploitation.
You know, if there is one single thing to take away from this entire story, it's something so simple but so easily forgotten online. Behind every single username, every comment, and every creator's channel, there is a real person.
Which leaves us with one last, pretty difficult question. When that line between being a passionate fan and being a toxic harasser completely disappears, who's really responsible? Is it the platforms, the culture we've all built, or is it just the individuals themselves? Honestly, it's something we all need to think about.